global FMCG, manufacturing and technology businesses. She is a resilient Ukrainian who has recently started the North American branch of her coaching and consulting business out of Pittsburgh metro area. Olga is proud to have a legacy of business and HR leaders she has inspired and developed who are successful across multiple industries and geographies today. And she's here to tell you about her family's escape from Ukraine. Here is Olga.
Sean, thank you so much for your introduction. Before I start sharing our story, I have to note two things. First one, let me start with a riddle, which I heard at our church a couple of weeks ago, and the riddle is the following. There were 50 cows, 28 chicken. How many didn't? What would be the answer? So there were 50 cows, 28 chicken. How many didn't? 30. So 50 cows, 28 chicken. 20, like 28 chicken. So I share this riddle with you to humbly admit that I think my English comprehension is really good. I was the only one at church that day who got the right answer. But I have very strong accent. So if you start losing me, just let me know. Okay? I'll slow down, I rephrase myself so that I could be understood. And a second thing I would like to mention is that I come from Ukrainian Catholic Christian tradition, and in my speech I'll share our stories in regards to Lord, to God. If it's something which is foreign to you, I invite you to think about what is divine or sacred to you, so that it would make sense to you, okay? And now to my talk, and I'd like to start with a few questions. Do you have plans for this summer? Could you hear? It is hard to understand. There is some echo, yeah? Some echo? Maybe we need Sean's help. Sean? Mm-hmm. Guests share that it's hard to understand me in the back. So it might be my accent. So I'll call for Holy Spirit to guide us so that you would understand me, okay? So back to my questions. Do you have plans for this weekend? Do you have your grocery list ready? Shopping list? You can't understand? It's echoing? I would love you to hear me, to understand me. So could you hear? If you can, could you raise your hands? You could hear? And people who have difficulties hearing me. What could we do? I'll try to speak slower. So I think that most of you answered yes to my questions. And I have to admit, we used to answer yes to those questions 2 years ago as well. But then one day, that life has ended. And just imagine, you wake up one morning and you just have your life, your family, and the Lord, and the rest is gone. So I'll humbly share a story of my family today, but it's not unique. It's very much alike stories of hundreds of thousands, millions of Ukrainian families. who suffered and suffer the war in Ukraine. And let me start with introducing you to my husband. He's next to me. His name is Roman. And this picture was taken when we were inviting guests to our wedding. I come from a family of righteous and very loving parents, but I would love to spend a couple of next minutes telling a story about Roman's family. His uncle was a priest, Father Mikhailo, and he was a very righteous priest. And you may know that in Soviet Union, religion, faith was prohibited. So because of his vocation, he was into prison in Siberia twice. But it didn't break him. So when he was back in Ukraine, in his native town of Yaremche, he started secret seminary. And they had to have some undercover. And I think you might be surprised. His undercover for his secret seminary was beekeeping. So when they were in the forest, he used bee houses to teach about 20 young men, boys, how to run the mess. But as soon as KGB came to the forest, they just had bee houses. They were beekeeping. And one story which we have in our family, another one, is that when His Beatitude, Sviatoslav, the head of Ukrainian Catholic Church, became the head of the church, he came to the grave of Father Mikhailo and shared that it was Father Mikhailo who inspired him to become a priest. And during our wedding, all those 20 priests were at our wedding, and they were singing, so it was a choir of the priests, really a blessing to our family. And after the sacrament, the priests gave us a gift of an icon of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And this is an important point in my story. And a couple of years later, after losing our first child, we were blessed with a son, Danilo, and I'm thankful to him for being here today. If you don't mind, you can stand up. So, Danilo, often known as Daniel here, is 16 years old, and he is a sophomore at Central Catholic. Just had his finals today in the morning. Then 3 years later, our middle daughter, Maria, was born, and she's a 7th grader at St. Mike's School. And then in 2017, I remember that day, I sat in a car and I was like, I'm pregnant. I just had this feeling. And yeah, indeed, I was pregnant with our 3rd daughter, Kate. And she has her water day at Steenrod today, so I was not able to take her here. And this picture was taken in May of 2021, when Maria, our middle daughter, had her first communion, and it was our last peaceful May in Ukraine. Roman is very active with Knights of Columbus, and he's still very active with Knights of Columbus in Ukraine. He's a director of programs, and this picture was taken perhaps in 2016, when Knights of Columbus were preparing Easter baskets for the families who were internally displaced from eastern Ukraine, where war started by Russia was ongoing as of 2014. Back in Ukraine, I was a human resource executive in different companies. I was a speaker, I was a trainer, and this is what I started doing here in the United States. As Sean kindly mentioned, I started a business working with executives, with teams and companies, helping them to unfold their true potential and to achieve the results they would love to. It is important to mention that I also have a sister, and she and her family lives in Pennsylvania, Central Valley. They have 3 girls, my 3 nieces. So Danilo, to be the lucky one, the only boy in the family. And we are very close with my sister. We have this promise to each other that whatever it takes, but we would spend our annual vacations together. And it was always the case until COVID started. And then we didn't have a chance to see each other. But in December of 2021, we came here to the United States to spend our Christmas together. And Maria, my sister's name is Maria as well. A lot of Marias in the families, in Ukrainian families. And Maria was telling me, Olya, there are a lot of news that Russia would start war against Ukraine. Please, don't go back home, stay here. But you know, who would believe that war, which takes lives, which destroys cities, schools, houses, hospitals, which rapes kids, females, infants, which destroys river dams, which flood hundreds, thousands of miles of territory, which is not applicable for living or suitable for living anymore, would start in 21st century. We didn't believe that, so we went back home, we went to Ukraine, and upon our return as a family, my husband Roman and me, we made the decision that since my dad was very sick, he had cancer and heart issues, I would resign from my job to take care of my father. But that life stopped on February of 2022, on February 24th, sorry, of 2022. I woke up at 5:30 when I heard a blast. And there was a tram line running next to our apartment building, and I thought, I had a faint hope that it was just first morning tram. But then it was just silence. And then I heard my phone ringing. I picked up the phone, and it was our friends. They were shouting at me, Olya, Russia started bombarding us. You have to take the kids and to escape Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. But perhaps you'll be unsuccessful because already all the roads are packed with the cars trying to leave the city. So Roman went to my parents' apartment and brought my parents to our place. We knew that my dad wouldn't make it to a shelter, but there is this two-wall rule, and hopefully you are not aware of it. But they say that if you cannot go to shelter, you'd better hide behind 2 walls. So first wall will protect you from the shattered glass, and then you'll have more chances to stay alive if you hide behind the second wall. We were watching TV, and President Zelensky was sharing updates from some basement in Kyiv. And at 3 p.m. that Thursday, Roman and myself made a decision that we would take kids to save them and would go to Western Ukraine, to Ivano-Frankivsk, where Roman's sister's family live. So we started our journey, and indeed, all the roads in both directions were packed with cars trying to leave the city. And here and there, we could just see military equipment, military cars, trying to get their way into the city. Instead of 7 hours, That trip took us 24 hours. As soon as we came to Roman's sister's place, she fed us, and we just crashed asleep. As soon as we woke up and listened to news were getting worse and worse. So Roman told myself and kids, you pack, and you just take another pair of clothing to change. Danilo, you'll have to carry that bag with the clothes. And Olya, most probably, you'll have to carry Kate, our youngest one, across the border for 7 miles. So we started our journey. And kids were crying in the car, asking us why would we have to leave their dad behind. At that moment, we didn't know that my husband would be allowed to leave the country. And it took us 5 days to cross the border. When we were at the border, the officer asked us, are these kids yours? We said yes. Show me the documents. We showed. And then we heard, all of you go. Apparently, if a man has 3 kids, at least 3 kids, under 18 years old, they're allowed out of Ukraine. At that moment, when we crossed the border, we were relieved. But I need to admit that there were many moments later on when Roman was desperate to go back, especially when we had losses in our circle due to war. But as soon as we crossed the border, Knights of Columbus, and I haven't mentioned that, there are Knights of Columbus in Poland as well, and Roman's hope was that Knights would meet us as soon as we crossed the border to support us. So as soon as we crossed the border, Knights met us, we started our drive, but since we were deprived of sleep those 5 days in the car, we were just crushing asleep. So we took a quick detour and napped for 10 minutes. And as soon as we resumed our drive, we saw this bright light at the end of the road. We looked at each other, and I heard Roman saying explosions. But it was just bright light at the end of the road. So Knights took us to that place where we spent the night, and when we woke up in the morning, we found out that it was a shrine of Pope John II, and some of you may know that the place where Saint Faustin lived, and this is also the place to Divine Mercy, icon of Divine Mercy. And I just started crying when I found out that. Why? In July of 2021, we had our summer vacation, and we didn't have any plans. We were just traveling around Western Ukraine, enjoying beauty of Carpathian Mountains, and we were passing that village one day. And Roman went, Olya, one of the brothers from the monastery, which we used to go to in Kyiv, which was our parish, was moved to a monastery in that village. So we stopped by. We spent a day with Brother Pahomij. He just loves kids, so it was a lot of fun. And when we were leaving, he gave us an icon of Divine Mercy as a gift. So when we came home, we put it as a masterpiece in our living room. And then, in February of 2024, we were standing at that shrine. And I was reciting the words on the icon. Do you know them? Jesus, I trust in you. So I knew that already back then, Lord knew what would happen, and that He would provide, and that He would take care of us. My sister told me, Olya, as soon as you cross the border, I'll buy tickets and you'll have to come over to the United States. We will have to save the kids. I don't know how we will make it, but like you just have to come. So after spending a couple of days with Knights of Columbus in Kyiv, fundraising for Ukraine, we flew to Central Valley in Pennsylvania. And when we entered my sister's house, there was a huge sign, "Welcome home." And her house became our house, our home for 6 months. And we were living in a basement, but we were all together and sound. But now we call Wheeling our home. Here is another story. My kids tell me I have a lot of stories. So, a head of Knights of Columbus in Ukraine, his name is Yuri, is also a head of Technocup company, division of Technocup company. And Yuri was telling Roman, we have another division in Glendale, in West Virginia. They always look for electricians, and Roman is an electrician by job. And they want to support some Ukrainian family. Just go there, explore opportunities. So we came on August 19th of 2022 to Wheeling. Roman had an interview. And now looking back, I think that the management of Technocup had just big heart and they wanted to support Ukrainian family and probably propose some kind of administrative job to Roman. But then there was this jackpot. With him bringing all the vast experience he has in engineering. So Roman got a job offer. And we had to make a decision whether we are moving to Wheeling or not. We had to make it quick, since school year in Wheeling has already started. So what do? We go on the internet and check whether there is a Ukrainian Catholic church somewhere nearby. And to our surprise, the only Ukrainian Catholic church in the whole West Virginia is in Wheeling. So I went like, Lord, you cannot speak louder, that we have to move and we have to come here. But there was another challenge. We come home, we tell kids that we are moving, and all of them were in tears. They just started making friends there. They started settling down, and now we have to take them somewhere again. But then, next morning, Maria, our middle daughter, woke up, and she was like, Mom, I thought we will have more stories to tell to our kids. So indeed, they are resilient. And I started thinking about source of resilience. And to me, that source is definitely the Lord. But what I did, I took each letter in what source and started exploring in what ways Lord fueled our resilience through his source. So let me invite you to explore letter U, uncover perspective. And I'll recite a verse from Job 42:2. I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. And I knew that, it was war, but I kept on asking myself, what else is true? And when we were in Ukraine, I used to be a breadwinner in the family. But now Roman has a chance to apply his talents and to be a breadwinner. Kids have a chance to go to school here, to learn English language. We do too. And the beginning of today's session showed me that I still have to work on my English. And I have another story to share, speaking of English. And some of you might heard it from me. When we came, Kate spoke little English, like an apple, a carrot, she just spoke, actually she didn't speak Ukrainian fluently, she was 3 years old back then. But now she speaks fluent English. Those of you who hear her would never ever say that she was not born here. So we are working on her Ukrainian, on bringing her Ukrainian back. So I remember that one night we came home and I didn't have dinner ready. So I rushed into the kitchen and I asked Danilo to help Kate undress. And Danilo was like, Kate, you have to ask me in Ukrainian, please undip my coat, please untie my shoes. So she tries, and then he goes, and now say everything together. And she goes, I'll do it myself. And I was like, okay, if she doesn't speak Ukrainian as soon as I would like her to, at least she'll become independent. So I have this question always in my mind. Going through any challenges I face, what else is true? So that I could focus on abundance of the Lord, not on the challenges we might face. Next, S, seize the moment. I also think when I speak about these pillars, about knowing myself. And here I have a verse from Matthew. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat or drink, or about your body, what you'll wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And I remember we were sitting in a car, waiting our turn to cross the border, and I was watching sunrise. And that sunrise was beautiful, as sunrises can be. And yes, I thought that there is war, and we might die, we might be bombarding, standing in that line to cross the border, but why to waste any second of this life here? So as soon as kids woke up, we started recalling memories from our past, started playing games, sharing jokes, and I love to say that this pillar helps me not to worry about the future or the past, but be present in the moment. So, seize the moment. Now to O, open to receive. And I'll have a humble confession here. I love this verse from Proverbs. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. And we were refreshed, blessed in many different ways back at home in Ukraine. And I always thought that we were refreshed to refresh others. I never thought that we would be in position to be refreshed by others. Refreshed on all the different levels: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. I remember it was, I think, day 2 of our standing in that line. We were sleeping, and I was happy that kids were asleep as well, since they were not begging for food. We ran out of food, as many others, in that line to cross the border. So I was like, good, sleep as long as you can. But then we woke up, and I was so touched to see that villagers from nearby villages started setting up field kitchens, and they started cooking sandwiches, soups, and just giving away food to people standing in the cars or to those who were crossing the border on foot. To this day, that chicken soup I had today is the most delicious soup I had in my life. We were also receiving prayers and words of support from across the world. Our friends, people we knew in Lithuania, Latvia, Germany, Spain, France, United States, were reaching out to us and opening up their houses so that we could come and stay as long as we need with them. Another thing to mention, and I forgot that in the beginning, when we were living in Kyiv, and we were discussing with my parents whether they would join us, they told us, kids, you go, but we've lived our lives. And I was heartbroken by that. But then in April of 2024, a bomb hit apartment building next to ours. My dad saw that, experienced that, and he told my sister and me, girls, I'm ready to leave. So we organized a car which took my parents to the border. Then there was a bus which took them over the border. And policemen carried my dad from that bus to the train. There were girls on the train who my mom is still in touch with, who spoke Ukrainian, Polish, English, and they helped them to fill out all the paperwork. So my parents made it here in less than 40 hours. Compare that to 10 days which it took us to come here. So it was indeed a blessing, which happened thanks to being open up to receive from others. Another story relates to Maria, our middle daughter, and it will take us to other pillar. When we were living with my sister in Pennsylvania, she started doing triathlon, like swimming, biking, running, along with my nieces. And they had that first race in summer, and there were all these crazy cheerleaders, also known as parents. And she did really good in running, biking and in swimming, but then they started running through some forest, and all the kids were finishing the race. I was standing at the finish line, but my kid was not there. I was really worried. And then I saw as all the kids stood up and ran back to the race track. And in some time, all of them were running back. Maria is in a white short in the middle, accompanying her, cheering her up so that she would finish that race. I was standing there, being proud of my kid, who didn't give up, as many Ukrainians, who finished that race. And moreover, I was thankful to the kids and to their parents who raised up such kind kids. So this story is to illustrate you the importance of next pillar related to people. And I'll recite a verse from John now. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. When we came to the United States, we felt as if our roots were not planted, as if we were not nourished. So we found a parish of Ukrainian Catholic Church in Bethlehem, in Pennsylvania. So we started making friends there. Then, when we were at the playgrounds, other parents and kids would hear that I speak not English, or if I spoke English, I had very strong accent. So people would ask me, like, what language do you speak? And I would have a chance to share our story. When we were living in Pennsylvania, my sister told me that in 6 months there, we made more friends than them in 20 years. But when we came here to wheel and we had to start over again. And we have a community of friends, a family of friends in our church, of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. At St. Mike's Parish. At communities of our schools where our kids go to. We have friends at Technocup, the company where Roman works at. And we just make friends along the road. Like I had the chance to meet Nancy, who introduced me to Mr. Sean. And now I'm speaking in front of you here today. So we are just making friends along the way. And I always think about how we could nourish our roots and relate to people wherever we are. Next pillar is to contribute to others. And I'll recite again the same verse. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. So we tried to support others, to contribute to others from the first seconds of war. And I remember we were standing in that line to cross the border. Roman took out his vest, Knights of Columbus vest, like these yellow ones, which you put on to know that you're doing something important. And I was next to him and we were directing the traffic. And kids confessed afterwards that those hours they were afraid we would have been killed not by Russian bombs, but by Ukrainian people who were in panic. Then Roman found some trash bags, and both him and Danilo, in that orange coat, started collecting trash. And you have to imagine that besides cars trying to leave the country to cross the border, there were a lot of people, families, who were trying to cross the border on foot. And walking for miles, they would get tired, they would stop and unload their luggage. They would leave clothes, books, family pictures, just leave essentials so that they could continue their journey. So Roman and Danilo started collecting the trash so that those who are walking could have easier journey. I continued my work, supporting volunteer work, supporting Roman and Knights of Columbus. I also was an part of International Coaching Federation, and I also got to know Trauma Resource Institute out of California. They were supporting Ukrainian teachers and educating them on how nervous system operates and 6 wellness skills so that they could regulate themselves better and could help kids to stay resilient in challenges of war. And now to the last pillar, embrace gratitude. And I could continue here for hours, if not days. And here is the verse from the Bible. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. First of all, I'm thankful to my sister for being crazy and inviting us to come over here. I'm thankful to tens, if not hundreds of people who've been praying for us, who supported us financially. Like all the furniture at the place where we stay now was donated by someone, was given by someone. Like the phone, which I have, was given to me by Knights of Columbus. Another story to share, we went to Mass, to service, when we were here in Wheeling on first Sunday. We come home back to Hampton Inn, where we lived while we were searching for a place for us to stay. And then we see Gemma and David downstairs. And they brought us some certificates to restaurants and some cash so that we could feed kids until Roman started receiving paycheck. All the clothing we had was donated to us by people. And another story, which is like a highlight of giving and gratitude, goes back to our first days here in the United States. Our older kids went to school in Pennsylvania, but Kate, who is also known as social animal, was at home alone. So the only question I heard from her was, "Mom, could I go to school as well?" Like we couldn't afford a daycare for her. But then my sister remembered that a mother of her daughter's friend is a CEO at a daycare center in Pennsylvania. So she calls Sarah, and Maria goes like, "Mama, you see, speaking of mamas, yeah?" And she goes like, "Sarah, how much would it be to send a kid for a couple of hours a day?" And she shared our story. And Sarah tells Maria, "I'll call you back." And then she calls 30 minutes later, and we hear, "The board approved free daycare for Kate. Please come for as long as you need." So she had a chance to enjoy being among the kids and just enjoying childhood, which you would wish for your child to have. So we really need so little in the economy of more to be grateful. And another confession I would love to make today is that the biggest challenge I had as soon as war started was about how could I love Russia? How could I love Russians? How could I love Putin? Because of what is happening back at home in Ukraine. And I found peace in my heart when I accepted that not in forgetting, but in forgiving, I could find resilience to continue supporting my family, Ukraine, and to pray for conversion of Russia and Putin. And as it is said in Matthew, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. And before we close today, when I share our story, I very often hear, how could we support Ukraine? And I would like to dedicate this talk to my nephew, Max Dividorov. He is at the front line in Ukraine, and if you will feel like you would like to donate, to contribute, please do so. His battalion is always in need of life vest, tourniquets. So if you feel like to, please do so. And afterwards, on social media, on Facebook, I'll share how much we collect today. So in conclusion, I always remind myself, and I kindly invite you to refer to this source of resilience when you face the challenges you experience in your life. Seize the moment, open to receive, uncover perspective, relate to people, contribute to others, embrace gratitude. I love you, Lord. You are my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my Savior. Thank you. Sure.
Do you have any questions?
I know that lady.
I'd like to know how you got along with your neighbors when you moved here. For those of you who don't know, Olga lived above me when she came to the United States. A lovely, lovely family. I'm just going to tell you one story. The third week they were here, her husband called us on the phone and wanted to know if we would allow him to scrub the mold off our garage door. And we knew that they were going to be tremendous neighbors.
Yeah, we have a lot of story. I do have some. Thank you so much. But I'll take. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
I don't need the mic. I just want to thank you for sharing your story. Thank you very much, Dana. I wish you and your family the best and your healthy relationship.
Thank you so much. And, I share on social media that I appreciate all of you who are here today, since our stories will be heard if you're here to listen. So thank you so much for being here today.
I just want to say your face is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Some an awkward silence, yeah? So, shall you enjoy your lunch now?
Let's give a round of applause. Thank you. Thanks for
Shona,
coming.
if I may say, special thanks to Holy Spirit for leading me. I bet it was hard to understand me, but even if you understand the words, hopefully you understood me in spirit. So,
Thanks, Olga. See you next week.